Hi, and Happy New Year from everyone here at the Big DK Energy Podcast. Of course, this episode is probably going to be aired a little later in the month, but this is the first episode that we're recording in the new year. So everybody, welcome to 2022. Everyone who tuned in during the end of 2021 when we started, I just want to say thank you for tuning in and supporting. Every single view and every single like or share or subscribe means everything to me. And to start that off, we have today's guest, which is actually a buddy of mine since the beginning of my college career, who is really quite a devoted individual. So when he's not doing stuff necessary to prep for the Navy, since he is going for officer school, he is a world traveler and even has his own videography company called EKM Productions, in which they kind of give you a little look about what goes on in their travels. And so we have him coming on the show to talk about that. And we're also going to talk about our favorite sport, which is the lovely sport of hockey. So without further ado, please welcome today's guest, Mr. Edward Maybury.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm really honored to be here, actually.
Of course, Eddie. I'm glad that I ran into you. And so immediately I thought about what you've been doing travel-wise. And I'm thinking, I think this would be pretty cool to talk about on the podcast. So Definitely. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. The travel part of the Instagram page is actually a lot of fun. It's something that I kind of just started putting together in the middle of med school, actually. And I wish I had done it earlier. I wish I had found that hobby back in high school. But hey, we got to make do with the time we have left. And so that's what I'm doing with it.
So it is currently 2022. How long ago was med school for you?
I started in August of 2019. So I'm in year 3 out of 4 right now.
And then after that, you're going to go straight into the Navy? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll do a transitional rotation year where I just go through a bunch of different specialties. And then I'll start my active duty time for 4 years. And it really depends on what the Navy needs, where I want to go, and preferences. So there's a lot still up in the air as far as that goes.
Awesome. And what is your goal in the Navy? Is it to, for example, become a SEAL, or is it to do other stuff?
Oh, I don't know about being a SEAL. That's a little bit hardcore for me, actually. My dad, he was in the Navy, and he was a flight surgeon. So I don't necessarily want to do everything exactly the way that he did it back in like the 80s and early 90s, but I am considering what he did. But I also want to chart my own path and see what general medical officer tours are like, maybe even dive medicine. So there's a lot to consider going into the future.
Did you say dive medicine?
Yeah, dive medicine is one of the things that is available depending on what I want to do. A lot of those physicians, they focus on the underwater operations that a lot of the Navy and Marines and even SEALs do, because there's a lot to go into it, actually.
Do they know a lot about the bends and all that kind of stuff?
Definitely. It's one of the big things they keep track of. And the gear that they have is just out of this world. And the preparation that they go into, not just with the medical team, but the engineering team and the COs. And it's really amazing.
Like they have those like big decompression tanks, right? That you kind of have to sit in for like, I don't know, 4 hours or something like that?
I don't know off the top of my head. I think it depends on how severe your case of the bends is, if you happen to unfortunately run into that issue. But it's a serious thing. If it gets bad enough, it can turn fatal really fast.
Especially if you fly that day.
Yeah, that too. It's amazing. The more that I learn while I'm in school, the more terrified I am of the world around me, of just how easily things can kill you. But on the flip side of that, it's interesting to learn how resilient the human body is and how much like it can deal with, how much trauma it can deal with and still function after a recovery period. So
the adaptability of humans is the reason why our species has lasted this long. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you really looked at what we had to deal with back in prehistoric times, we were easily bottom of the food chain, but it's been our brain and our ability to adapt. That's the reason why we're able to podcast here right now.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
Absolutely. Thank you to your dad for serving. My father was in the Army, so I understand about having a military father. And did you ever have to move around a lot when you were younger?
We did, but I was fortunate because we stopped moving right around I was 5. So,
you're lucky.
Yeah, I wasn't exactly the full military brat that people know. And yeah, I was lucky. I was fortunate. My sister and I, we settled in Jacksonville in the year 2000. And from that point on, my dad was in the reserves. So
okay, nice. Yeah, I actually was born in California. I don't know if it's their national training base anymore, but it's Fort Irwin. The nearest town is Barstow, California. So it's way out there. But then I moved to Korea, lived there for a little bit. And then I moved to Arizona. That whole military brat story. But yeah, you joined the Navy. And so when you were talking about things that were terrifying you, so I have this thing called thalassophobia, which if you don't know what that is, it is the fear of the ocean.
Really?
And that's like that severe fear of the ocean. For example, you've seen Finding Nemo, right?
Yes.
So remember when Nemo first encounters the diver and it's a really shallow ground, but then it immediately drops off into the deep? That's the kind of stuff that scares me.
So it's not so much like, oh, I'm scared of a shark coming and getting me. It's more so like you're treading water in like a dark area and you're looking down and you just have no clue what's there.
Yeah, it's either nothing can come up or like a blue whale could come up. It's not on purpose, it's going to eat you, but you're going to be in the vast amount of water that it takes in order to get the krill.
Yeah, after seeing Finding Nemo when I was younger, that was a big fear of mine, getting swallowed up by a whale, like the way that...
Also Pinocchio.
Pinocchio, that movie, when you look back on it as an adult, you cringe at the stuff that they put in those movies
They
back
got
in
away
those
with a
days.
lot.
Oh my goodness. I guess that's the way it was back then, but I mean, it's just...
The part that scared me the most was when the boys were drinking and they turned into donkeys, and then the guy turned into that, he had that face that like scared everyone. He's just like, they're just boys, sell them.
And being trapped and not being able to say, hey, like, I'm a boy, don't sell me, when they changed and they were helpless. Oh my gosh.
It's traumatizing.
It worked. I didn't want anything to do with drinking or smoking cigars for a long... I mean, I didn't have the urge anyway, but when I watched it as an 8-year-old, but still, it did its job at scaring kids away from that stuff.
It's better than Dare.
Dare.
The one against drugs.
Is that the one where they brought people into schools and put the pink lungs and the black lungs up next to each other and showed what they looked like being inflated?
I think that's something else, but it's kind of along those same things. It's just like, don't do drugs, otherwise this is what your brain will look like. They had this famous commercial. It showed an egg and it says, this is your brain. And then they cracked it and then put it on a frying pan and they go, this is your brain on drugs.
I mean, that's a little much. I guess they're trying to be like, oh, your brain gets cooked when you do drugs. And
Places are taking away drug tests. It kind of shows that we lost the war on drugs.
yeah, the war on drugs is a lot more complicated than just a simple war on drugs. Like, there's so many other complicated factors that goes into it. And the whole idea of let me drug test my employees, I think it really depends on the industry that we're talking about here. I don't want the person running the forklift in the middle of downtown Orlando lifting tons and tons of metal over driving cars to be high. I feel like that's a fair thing. But at the same time, to have parents being kicked out of their jobs and suddenly jobless and unable to provide for their kids because their dad does a little bit of pot is also a little bit extreme.
Exactly. The war on drugs, it's really international. And speaking of international, you have a traveling video production company.
Yes, definitely. You good at bringing it right back.
Of course, man.
Yeah.
So tell us, what are some of your favorite trips? Or you told me that you got this started in high school, right?
Like, my first real trip was after I finished at UCF and we went to Europe. And
Oh, nice. How long was the trip for?
that was a month long, actually. That was probably my favorite trip out of everything that I've done.
Was it backpacking?
Yeah, we stayed in hostels most of the time, and it was with a bunch of my close friends. Jacob, I think you met Jacob and Zach before, those two guys.
I know Zach.
Yeah, Zach was there on the trip with us.
He's a
and-
fellow member of the tribe.
Yeah, actually, it was kind of his idea to get us going. We were just going to go for Oktoberfest, and then it just blew up into a huge trip, actually. So our other two friends, Annie and Kelsey, also were there with us. But that's how it all started. It was like, if I don't spend a month in Europe now, when am I ever going to do it? I'm going to start school, and I'm never going to get a month off just to do what I want ever again in my life, I don't think. Not until I'm 65. So I'm really glad we ended up going and doing it. But what inspired the Instagram account was really me being in med school and just needing something to escape, because I would sit at the same desk chair for 12 hours a day going through flashcards and slides and learning a bunch of cool stuff. But I mean, it just takes a lot out of you if you don't have some kind of escape. And anybody that's been in college and has been in tough classes understands what that's like.
Oh, absolutely. Especially if you have to learn all 14 muscles that are in your forearm or something like that. I don't know. I was a digital media major, not a doctor.
Still though, forearm muscles are no joke. So if you're going to pick a muscle group, that's the muscle group to pick, because
Right,
they're really skinny and they look just like the one that's next to each other. That part of, we did an MSK class, and that part was definitely a part that I struggled with even up until the test day, identifying all of those muscles. So that's keen. It's keen that you pointed that one out.
Interesting. Yeah, that was just the first one that I thought of, but it was your escape. And
Yeah.
how many countries did you go to during this trip?
During that trip, we went to, I believe, 7 countries. We started in the UK, in London. Then we went to Germany for Oktoberfest. And then Prague, Czech Republic, so that's 3 countries. Hungary, we went to Austria. Well, Austria and then Hungary, so that's 5. And then I went back to Germany and then ended my trip in Paris. So I guess technically 6 countries, if I'm counting correctly.
7 places? That's still not bad. Did you go through like EF, or did you fully plan out the entire trip by scratch? From scratch?
So we took turns figuring out who was going to like run what part of the trip, because doing a whole month planning it on your own is just insane. But for the Oktoberfest part, I think that was Jacob and Zach took over that part. My part was Ireland, so I was really excited for that one. We got a rental car.
Oh, you went to Ireland as well?
Yes, I forgot to mention Ireland. There it is. There's a 7th country. I knew it was 7. And that part was cool because it was the only country that we rented a car for. And I highly recommend renting a car if you ever do go to Ireland, because seeing all the sights is cool, but just driving through just the green countryside of Ireland and just seeing all the old ancient buildings that have been there for way longer than we've been there. It's really nice to see. It's relaxing.
I bet. I've always seen pictures, and I definitely want to check out Dublin, go visit Temple Bar. I also want to see the Giant's Causeway, I believe it's what it's called.
Yeah, we didn't do that. That was on the list that we were really considering doing that.
Got it. And then there's also the Cliffs of Moher, I believe it's what it's called.
Mm-hmm. We did that. That was amazing. Probably one of the highlights of the trip for sure. And when we got back from the whole trip overall, I had all this footage, and I made my first real travel video of the whole thing, and I had a blast doing it because now I was motivated because I wanted to be able to randomly at any time in the future, if I had a Wi-Fi signal, pull out the video and relive that trip whenever I wanted to. If I had 10 minutes to kill and I wanted to just relive that part of the trip, I could do it. And then what made the Instagram account come to life was my idea of, you know what, like I kind of want to expand on this, and I want other people to give me their footage of their trips, because I want others to be able to look back at any time and relive the trips that they've been on themselves. Because taking videos is great, going on trips is great, but since I've started this thing, I've only done a couple of projects solely for other people that I was not in, and that, like, seeing the looks on their faces when I like show them the finished product is just so satisfying, and it drives me to just improve my editing skills and improve my ideas and stuff. So that's really what I want this to turn into. A lot of the footage on there is me, and a lot of it is from that Europe trip because there's just so much there. But I'd like it to change. I'd like it to evolve to others, because I don't want it to be just all about me, because I can put that on my own Instagram account, and that's a little bit redundant.
Got it. So you want to be a travel video agency. Okay, I don't think I've ever heard of something like that before, because everyone's heard of video agencies and travel agencies, but I never heard of anything specifically for travel. It's interesting because you're right, editing is a true skill, which, by the way, that is a great skill to know nowadays. And honestly, that's kind of what I not used, quote unquote, my fraternity for, but I realized that I was a digital media major and that I wanted to get into that kind of field that you're talking about. So I made our first Rush video. So it's just about taking the initiative and then just compiling everything together to show that, no, this isn't just some hobby. I'm being for real about this.
Yeah. You can tell there's a difference between somebody just doing the job and somebody that is like thwarting themselves and their whole creativity and their being into it, because it's the passion of theirs. And I'm sure the fraternity appreciated it. I know I didn't see a lot of what you did for the fraternity, but I saw everything you did for Nightthon, and that was incredible. The skills that you provided in Nightthon helped people that participated and people like me relive that moment when I couldn't record it for myself because I was busy doing my own thing.
Much like what you're doing for everybody else.
Yeah, and it's nice to see that.
It's heartwarming. It's satisfying, gratifying, and all the above. So one way that Eddie and I have known each other is that besides one of being the first people that I met at UCF just in general, we participated in what is called Nightthon. It is, I don't know if it's still UCF's largest student-run philanthropy, but back in our day it was, and we were both in the exec board. And so it was to raise money for I'm going to butcher this, the Arnold Palmer Hospital for Children and Winnie Palmer Hospital for Women and Children, I believe is what it's called.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Okay, it's just that I can't say it really fast, otherwise it's going to be garbled. But we actually had a previous guest who was with us on the exec board, Miss Ashley Edwards. And I believe it was our final year that we raised the most money.
I believe so. Yeah, actually, that's right. Yeah.
1.6 million?
1.584, I think, but who's counting?
Yeah, exactly. Whatever. It's over $1 million, and we did a fantastic job.
Being a parent for some of those miracle kids, you have to, I guess, like take everything with a grain of salt, because you're in a very unique, very particular like scenario, like situation with your kids, because it's almost like you sacrifice a lot of your own privacy to help advocate for other parents and other families.
You know what? That's actually that's a very good way of looking at it. It's kind of like the trade-off for being a celebrity. I mean, not that I've ever been one, but it's like, sure, everyone knows about everything that you're doing, but at the same time, you really have no privacy. It's kind of like Kanye West went at 4 in the morning, paparazzi was like, "Good morning, Kanye," and he was like, "Shut the F up."
I mean, I feel like everybody at some point wishes they were famous, wishes they had high influence over the whole world, over America, and lived the lush life of fame. And
best part about TikTok is you can just do that for one video.
You very much so could. I've been so tempted to make a TikTok account for this, but I've resisted the urge so far.
Honestly, you should, because that's actually where a lot of the reach is, because the thing is that as long as your feed isn't all people dancing or doing the crappy dances, like, you will find other travel related content that maybe you can learn from, that maybe you could eventually network through, and then they can see your stuff and be like, "Huh, Eddie, this stuff looks really good."
Careful, you might be be convincing me. What I'm nervous about is I already have so many things that distract me.
And it is very hard, especially on TikTok, to get lost into that literal stream that turns into a waterfall, that turns into the ocean. But one quote that kind of keeps me in line is that in order for me to be a good producer, I have to produce more content than I consume. And so when I'm editing, I'm always thinking, okay, I can't get distracted because the more content that I put out now, the more I get to enjoy in the future when I'm rolling in the Benjamins.
Yeah, fair. I've never heard that before, but that's a good policy to have. Producing content, it takes so much hours, and I know you already know this, hours and days and sometimes even weeks to produce minutes or just seconds of a finished product. And if you scroll through and you equivocate, okay, like for every 10-second video I watch, I gotta work for 2 whole days. Sounds a little bit daunting.
Oh, it's horrible, and especially if you want to go into freelance and you need to put those hours in, not only of you shooting, but then editing and then putting the final product together. It seems like, 4 hours of shooting can turn into 12 hours of editing, and it's a whole headache. But I'm so glad that you still push through all of that just to make sure that these travel videos are top notch, because I've actually seen a few of them and I love them, especially the one where you go to Normandy Beach.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, also growing up, I was a huge historian of World War II, so just seeing that. Actually, my uncle was on Utah Beach on D-Day +3, and when he went to go back, right before he passed away, unfortunately, because he knew of me learning about it so much, that he actually brought me back a sand from Normandy Beach.
That is really cool.
Yeah, I still have it in my house. I'm never letting that go. In
Never.
fact, my cousin actually one time sat down with him and listed out his entire war memoir. So unfortunately, due to all of my family members being Jewish, when they served in the armed forces, they experienced a lot of anti-Semitism. However, what was a cool fact about my uncle, besides being on D-Day +3, was that at one point he ran a POW camp filled with Germans.
Oh, no way.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know how that would be for him, but that must have been some kind of experience. I couldn't imagine.
I just remember reading from the thing that it said that they all called him the Little Jew, which it's ironic that the Jew runs the camp filled with Germans.
Yeah, that's sweet justice for him.
It's pre-justice. So thank you for your service, Uncle Sonny.
Yeah, thank you, Uncle Sonny. He's a brave man. I feel like the individuals that served back in those days were so brave. They endured things that, without question, that people of the same age today, I feel like, would just complain and go through any means possible to not do what they did on a bigger scale. I feel like just things were different back then. Tough individuals.
My grandpa, same side of the family, but he actually fought in the Pacific, and he received the Purple Heart because he got shot in the knee by a Jap.
Wow.
So yeah, you're right about this generation. Well, good thing we don't have to live in a generation where people have to get shot.
Thank goodness.
Well, most of us at least, because I know that there's still like some crime around. But
there is. And I feel like I hope there is not another world war. I hope not. If there is, though, I don't see it happening the way that it did in World War II with the beaches of Normandy, boots on the ground, just people running up a hill against a machine gun. I don't see that happening.
Everyone knows about MAD, mutually assured destruction. Granted, Russia and China, they might not like us, but then again, at the same time, they know that if we all have nuclear war, all 3 nations would be completely obliterated and the world would just crumble out from underneath. And then radiation will last into the future, and then Mad Max will happen, and then we don't know what happens after.
No, I don't think either one of us would be around to see it either way.
I hope we're not here to see that. That'd be really scary, especially if we have to, max out our cars with like full-plated armor with machine guns just to go to Publix.
It sounds cool in theory, but oh my gosh, day 3 or 4 in of living that life, I'd be over it.
Especially if people wanted to make marauder bands just to take advantage of the situations.
They would. It would happen. There'd be those that would thrive in those kinds of environments, and it wouldn't be me. I don't know about you, but
Exactly. I mean, maybe once you get some more military training under your belt, maybe you'll be able to at least fight them off and be able to survive out on your own. But besides Normandy, what's another place that you truly enjoyed being during that trip?
So I loved being at Oktoberfest, but not for the reasons why you think. Drinking was fun, obviously, and getting dressed up was fun.
Okay, so I have a weird question. Is Oktoberfest in October?
Most of the time, no, actually. It's not. I think maybe of the 3 or 4 weeks that it spans, 1 week is actually in October. It's very strange that it works out like that. But it's amazing when you look around. Actually, it's kind of a longer story, so maybe I'll tell just the first little tidbit. My favorite part was when we sat down and we were talking to people from other countries. And there was one girl that I remember talking to. She was born in Yugoslavia. That's what it was called at the time
Yep.
when she was born. And her parents grew up in the era where everything with America and capitalism was bad. Similarly to how our parents grew up in that era where everything with
Damn commies.
everything with the communists was bad. Everything with the Soviet Union was bad. And then she talked about what happened when she actually got older and she was an adult and she started traveling herself around Europe, like at Oktoberfest when we were there, and she met Americans. She met people like me and my friends, how it's not just a simple, like, capitalism's bad, communism's bad. People are people and they need things regardless of what kind of country they're in. And she realized that people that are from America aren't always evil, trying to money grab, and capitalism isn't always evil. Similarly to how meeting people like her that grew up in a communist country, she's not evil, and we were just talking and enjoying a drink together.
It's their
in
government
Germany.
that's evil.
Well, yeah, see, that's a different story. It's the individuals that make up what a country is, and the government deciding things for a whole nation isn't exactly what you see at the person-to-person level. And that's one of the things that kind of like, it amazed me how she could be from a totally polar opposite upbringing, especially her parents, and she and I can connect and have that conversation and realize if you just sit down and look at the people that are around you in your local area, in your local friend groups, and realize there's a lot more we have in common than divides us. And I think that's one of the big takeaways I took from that particular interaction with her.
That's the beauty of traveling. You get to see viewpoints that are not necessarily accepted over here. But then again, it doesn't have to be communism, because there are many different ways that people think.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And just because they're different does not mean that any one of them is inferior. Mm-hmm. Except, I'm just kidding. Except Lightning fans.
Well, we can agree on that, actually.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So, congrats on your back-to-back cups. I still don't like y'all.
Yeah, my little brother's a Lightning fan. He's a traitor.
Wait, was he born here in Florida?
Yeah.
Okay, I guess he has a bit of a past. But wait a minute, he should be raised to be a Bruins fan.
He should, and we tried. Believe me, we tried.
Does he hate Marchand?
He does, yes. Hates
Interesting.
Marchand. Anybody that's a Bruin he hates, but it's weird because he's from the generation, like you and I can sit down and watch a full hockey game and enjoy it. He can't. He's from that generation where he needs to have 3 different things going. He won't watch a hockey game. He'll watch the 4-minute highlight video afterwards and get all the information he needs.
He'll probably be texting during the entire game.
He'll be gaming, he'll be Snapchatting, he'll be Minecrafting on the side or something.
Really?
Like on his phone, on a tablet.
Nice.
And then he'll watch the highlights afterwards and he'll know 90% of what you and I would get from watching the full game, which is enough to have a conversation about it. So, I don't know. The art of watching a full game may be in danger as that generation gets older and becomes the primary audience.
And becomes more distracted. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like everybody now wants to make TikToks of them at the game saying, oh, look at me at the game, but then they don't actually watch the actual movement and everything. Mm-hmm. When was your first hockey game?
Oh, wow. I think my first hockey game was in Jacksonville. It was called the Jacksonville Barracudas. It was an ECHL team.
Wait, they're now the Icemen, right?
I actually have no clue. They don't play there anymore. They moved. So
interesting. Okay.
They moved and there was no hockey team, and now I think there is a hockey team. Ooh, sorry.
I'm just going to look it up real quick, but continue.
And now there is a hockey team there, I believe, called the Icemen. So it might have been a different franchise that moved in. But I remember that being so fun because my parents raised us with ice hockey. Both of them are from Massachusetts. They grew up playing hockey. My whole extended family is
Wait, your
from
mom
there.
too?
Oh, yeah.
That's sick.
She does a lot of refereeing now, actually. I think she's like a level 3 or level 4 now.
I used to be level 1, so good for her. But yes, it is the Jacksonville Icemen.
Yep. I think some of my fondest memories with my parents was when I was in high school. I would play on their adult league team. They were short on players, so me as a 14-year-old, I would just jump in with them and play, and it was cool because we had the Maybury line, and my dad was huge. My dad's 6'2", and I was fast. I had a lot of energy at the time.
Were you a winger?
I was the right winger. My dad was the center. My mom was the other winger.
No way.
So,
and let me guess, your other 2 siblings were the defensemen, and you had one more that was a goalie?
It would be nice if we had a 6th and there was a goalie. Sometimes I did play goalie, actually. At my gear. Playing goalie's fun.
Dude, I miss playing goalie. I used to play back in the day.
Oh, yeah. Didn't you play roller?
I played ice, actually.
Oh, wow. See, I think that's better.
Oh, 100%.
Roller.
1,000%.
I think you just torch your knees way easier as a goalie in roller hockey.
Well, there's not as much slidability, too. Actually, when I was the goalie for the ZBT floor hockey, it was nothing like what I was used to because I would go down on my knees, but I'd have no mass to cover the puck. And so, like, they would be able to, like, take it around, and I wasn't able to, like, kick my leg out in order to make the save. So it was painful. But continue. So you were a right wing with your dad and your mom?
Yeah, and very commonly, the puck would be in the corner, in the offensive zone. I'd be the one that would rush in to get it.
So you chase after the
I
dump?
would chase the puck. I would pass it to my dad, who would typically be, like, double covered because he has a good shot. And what he would do very often, it would be the no-look pass back to my mom, who was always backdoor and wide open and would score. So
nice.
She got all the goals, and it was just so fun.
Hey, but assists are important.
Oh, yeah.
Important. Not
absolutely.
Important.
Important. Assists are important. Got to get those apples.
Yes. All those bread baskets in a row. So you obviously grew up a Bruins fan. Who's your favorite player growing up?
Patrice Bergeron, no question. Tim Thomas was great. Char's great. There's a lot of great players, but the day Bergeron retires as a Bruin, which he will retire as a Bruin, I will shed many tears.
Fair enough. I mean, that guy's been in the league as long as I believe we have been watching hockey. I mean, we are the Crosby Ovechkin era, whereas kids nowadays are the McDavid and the Matthews.
Yes. I mean, they're great too. And
Connor McDavid's, he's another level.
Just watching him torch the entire 5-man roster of opponent teams, you have no words half the time. I don't even have a conclusive statement to what I just started. I don't know how to. Yeah, there's a YouTube channel that I watch very frequently. Sportsnet's the actual YouTube channel, but there's a guy called Steve Dangle, and he does a segment called Steve's Dangits and Steve's Hat Picks, and it's hilarious, the stuff that he points out. So any hockey fans out there, go check it out. It's a high-quality YouTube channel.
Well, I'm going to have to check it out now as well, because I've been watching hockey since 2006, so I feel you with that whole thing. Actually, I wasn't much of a sports guy growing up, but my dad took me to a Panthers versus Devils game in 2006. I think we lost that game 3-2, but I just remember I loved going to it, and then eventually my dad was like, hey, do you want to start playing? And so I was like, I don't know, but sounds cool. And then I remember watching Thomas Vokoun at the time, and I immediately was like, I want to be him. And yeah, that started my hockey journey.
That's cool. It's good that you had a parent that was like, that said, hey, like, this is cool. Do you want to do this? And then supported you doing that. I think that's just so huge.
Oh, actually, my dad was like your parents. Well, he's from New York, but he grew up a Rangers fan. My dad started getting into hockey coaching because of me and my stepbrother. So
nice.
And it always worked out because he was the coach, my stepbrother was a forward, and I was the goalie. So.
Nice. There are a lot of things that you can teach as a parent. Looking back, I realize this now, but when you're playing like young hockey, squirts hockey and stuff, and you're learning what teamwork is, hard work, like there's so many like life lessons you can learn through just any kind of contact sport, any kind of competitive team-based activity like that. And there's a lot. I really like that looking back. And that's what I'm going to raise my kids to do as well.
Oh, my kids are totally getting into hockey, but I was just having this talk with my aunt, and she said that it's not because of the chances of your kids going into professional sports. It's the overall life lessons about teamwork, camaraderie, how to shake off losses and defeats to come back stronger for the next one. I mean, if you think about it, it kind of gets you ready for adult life too. Yeah. Exactly what you're dealing with on a sports team is what you have to deal with your coworkers.
Yeah, definitely. Oh my goodness. There's so many things that go in parallel with sports and life, and your aunt's very wise. That's very true.
What's one important lesson that you've learned from hockey?
Treat your triumphs and disasters just the same. My dad gave me a poem one day. It's called If by Rudyard Kipling, and it's a great poem. And one of the lines that my dad kind of mentioned with hockey, sometimes like you've been in those games where it's just like 7-1 and you're just getting railroaded and you still have a whole period left to go in the game and you just want to leave. You're just like, I'm out of here. But then you've also been in the games where you're the one scoring 7 points, and then you have a breakaway and there's an empty net, and instead of just slap shotting it in and getting another goal 8-1,
it goes high and out of play.
And it's like, oh, sorry, oops. But there's a lot to be said about conducting yourself with the same kind of attitude when you're winning and when you're losing, because it's not always going to be wins and it's not always going to be losses. So,
but you have to finish.
You do. You have to finish strong. You got to work hard for your team and the people around you, because I don't buy into the idea of you're going through life alone. And some people do have to endure life alone, and it's really unfortunate. But a lot of people that have success, that make it places, they've had people in their corner and that have supported them. And this applies to any aspect of life, any industry you're going into. There are people that have helped put you to where you are. So I think that aspect's important to recognize and see how important it is to see the things that sports bring out that you can apply to day-to-day life as you grow up and grow into adulthood.
Actually, it's funny you mentioned that, because unfortunately he passed away when I was graduating high school, but one of my favorite people ever. He was one of my hockey coaches. His name was Joe Oganowski. I lived in Boynton Beach, but he lived in Fort St. Pierce. And so that was like an hour and a half away. But he still made the drive every single weekend because he loved the game of hockey. Hockey was literally his passion in life and what kept him going. And one of the most important lessons that he gave to me was whenever we'd score a goal, he'd always go, 1 gets you 2. So it kind of is building up on the momentum that if once you've created it, to just go full at it, because then that's when you create the avalanche that is your success.
I like that. One creates two. I can feel it. Like, as a player, I can just see what getting that first one would feel like to a team that already feels defeated or feels like the odds are against you. They've got all the good players. Our players are tired. Whatever situation you might be in, that's good. I like that one.
Kind of sounds like when my Panthers beat the Habs, and because ironically last year they were in the Stanley Cup Finals, and now they're at the bottom of the league.
I'm very happy to see that.
Well, I know you are.
Oh, you know how I feel about the Habs.
Fair enough. Although, what was your opinion of Patrick Waugh growing up?
I liked the guy because he was such a character, and not like a character like, the comedy show character. I mean,
Well, if anything, he had a very hot temper.
Yes, and as a young kid, I appreciated that. So it was fun seeing a goalie just not be a goalie and just be a Tasmanian devil on skates. And that's what I saw him as.
I love that description.
Yeah.
He was nuts, and there's a reason why he was the best up until Brodeur.
When you went to that game with your dad, the Panthers Devils game, was Brodeur in net?
I would assume so. Yeah,
Oh,
I think
man.
that was right when he was in his prime. Yeah, that would have been like right in the middle of his career. Freshman year reading during what was a reading hour right before class actually started. I actually read his autobiography because I was thinking, well, if I want to become a better goalie, why not read up from the guy who's the best?
Yeah.
And which is actually a reason why I started drinking Sprite in between periods, is because he said that in between periods he would drink a bottle of Sprite to give him a boost of energy.
Interesting. I never knew that.
I know, right? It's funny what happens when you read.
Yeah, wow. I need to read. I used to read so much before school, and I gotta get back to it.
Did you ever read anything like by Bobby Orr, like Jared Cheevers or someone like that?
I have a bunch of books by Bobby Orr, but I've never actually cracked them open. When I choose my books, I like to just escape and do like the mystery thrillers instead of the biographies, but I need to do that actually. Bobby Orr's story is amazing.
I mean, I believe he is the greatest defenseman of all time.
I agree with that, but I'm biased.
Yeah, exactly.
My opinion is not very valid.
He's 100% one of the top three, I would even say. But I just, there's a lot of talks about who else is a really good defenseman that we can think of that isn't Bobby Orr. Because when everyone thinks of defenseman, they think Bobby Orr.
Are we talking like old school or like all time type of deal?
Maybe just all time. I really have to think about it.
Everybody hates this guy. I hate this guy, but Chris Pronger has been mentioned.
Fair enough.
In that tough era of the early 2000s, late 90s hockey, before refs called everything. Oh,
That's actually one thing that I forgot what you said earlier, but it brought up the whole fact that fighting is kind of dying in today's game.
Yeah, it is.
It's sad.
Because the players are an investment on behalf of the NHL. They want to protect their investments, and fighting does not protect anything for them. It's just a quick thrill for the fans. So I get why they're trying to tap down on it. It's so sad. I'm really afraid our kids are going to grow up in an era where there are no fights anymore in hockey.
Just imagine when if they ever take out checking.
Oh my gosh. I don't want to think about that. It's almost like changing open field tackles in football to two-hand touch. Like
right.
Once you're beyond 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, it's two-hand touch. No more tackles. Like, I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, checking is an integral part of the game. Now, you don't have to send people through the glass every time.
No. When they do review the really hairy plays where they launch themselves off the ice, the shoulder hits them straight in the jaw, the player just is down and out. I get why they need to clamp down on those and dissuade those kinds of hits. So It makes sense. I don't want to see my favorite player get knocked out for the whole season because of a cheap shot. But when you see plays like, I forget who this was, but there was a play. You don't see hip checks very often anymore.
I was just about to say, a well-executed hip check is one of the best things you can watch in hockey.
It's so satisfying. But they almost call those automatically nowadays because they're like, oh, tripping. What do you mean tripping? He hit his hip with his hip.
Correct. It's like a fundamental part of hockey. And I think what really gets the rest attention is the aftermath of a well-executed hip check, because you could send people flying.
You could knock the wind right out of their lungs. And sorry, it looks bad, but they'll be fine.
That's the game. Hockey players take out their teeth mid-game and then go and play their shift 5 seconds later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so many famous clips that just pops into my head when you mentioned that. Like the Steven Stamkos broken nose play from, oh my gosh.
Was it Corey Perry that actually fought him?
Corey Perry did. What a nasty player Corey Perry is. I mean, he's so skilled. Oh, I could talk about these players so often.
I remember when he was on the Ducks.
Yeah. You hate to see a player with that kind of attitude just have so much talent and skill to survive that long in such a high-level league like the NHL because a team needs him, and then he just goes and beats a jerk.
Yeah. A goon.
A goon, yes. Great movie, by the way. You seen Goon?
I've only seen little snippets of it.
Oof, it's a classic.
They need more hockey movies.
They do. They really do. There's I forget the name of the movie. Mystery Alaska, I think is the name of it. That's a great one. One of my favorites.
Oh, Miracle?
Of course. That is my favorite.
Speaking of capitalism versus communism.
I think that it's so telling because that movie was made, I think, in 2003 or something like that.
Yeah, actually, it's funny because right after that movie, I played with a broom and a ball pretending I was a hockey player. And then little did I know, a few years later, it's like I'd be playing the actual thing.
Having a stick and a puck feels a lot cooler than a broom and a beach ball.
Yeah, that's right. But then again, that's when I was living in Virginia. I didn't get into hockey until I came to Florida, actually. So I was not going to be a Caps fan.
Good for you.
Which, by the way, are you team Ovi or Crosby?
I have to go with Ovi.
Same.
It's not that I hate Crosby. I just don't like his face. So I'm going with Ovi. But on a serious note, the reason why I am in the Ovi camp over the Crosby camp is because look at all the people Crosby had around him. And look at the goalie that he had.
Flurry.
Nothing against Holtby or anything like that, but before Holtby, the Caps didn't have anybody.
Yeah. It was only Ovi, Backstrom, and Alexander Semin.
Yeah, that's right. And Ovi's had a good handful of good players. Oshie being on the team now is huge for him. But that man could have a twig off of a tree from a hurricane and still slap shot it in from that left hash. I'm serious.
Especially if it's a one-timer.
Yeah, and that will never get old. Watching just a power play of the Caps, like I'll just stop what I'm doing and I'll just watch that whole 2-minute or less session.
I still get chills from the goal.
From what?
The goal. Remember?
The one where he's back. The old one with the old OG Capitals uniforms.
That's right, with the eagle striking down. He's on his back and he somehow scoops the puck in. I don't know. As I look at that clip as a goalie, I'm like, why would you come out that? I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I understand why you would come out that far, but then the goal slipped right past your right foot. So
I wonder if that was his rookie year.
I think so too, actually. It was early 2000s. I think our dads grew up on like the Marc Messier, Mario Lemieux, and Yager in his early years.
Yeah, did you ever see Yager play when he played for the Panthers?
I think I went to a couple games where he was on the Panthers, but when I heard that he was coming here, I was super ecstatic. I mean, I didn't know if he had anything left in the tank, which surprisingly he still does.
Yeah, a guy like that, you just think like, what's he taking? Like he's got to have some kind of like magic bones or something.
Right, or there's got to be something within the Czech water that allowed him. Oh, my favorite is when he was on the Bruins and they asked everybody their favorite players, and before him, David Krejci, a fellow Czech, was like, favorite player growing up was Jaromír Jágr. And then Jaromír Jágr goes, hi, I'm Jaromír Jágr from Kladno, Czech Republic, and my favorite player growing up was Jaromír Jágr.
Nice.
And then I actually remember that picture, and it was on TFM, and it says, being your own favorite player growing up, TFM.
Yep, yeah. I think the best part about the Jágr era, and people probably still do it because he's just that famous, but
Mullets?
Yeah, the Mullets and the Traveling Jágrs. Have you heard of that group?
Yes, I have.
Oh my gosh, there's like 12 of them or 15 of them or something. All the teams that he's ever been on, and it's amazing the commitment those guys go through because I think they travel to like each of the games and like it's a really exclusive group to be in, actually.
Interesting. I guess you have to learn like a little Czech or something like that.
I bet so. I wouldn't be shocked.
And obviously, one of the better teams during that era of Ovi and Crosby going at each other in their primes was the Bruins, actually. In fact, I remember when the Bruins won the Cup in, I believe, 2012 or 2013, because one of the owners of the Bruins had a house in Wellington, which is about 15 minutes where I'm from, and they brought the Stanley Cup to my local rink. Wow. And so it was just really cool to see in the flesh.
Yeah, you don't forget that. How old were you when that happened? It was 2011, and I was a sophomore in
I was about to say a sophomore in high school, second year.
That must have been amazing to see in person.
Oh, it was so cool. Like, I didn't know what picture to take of it because I'm like, how do I fully encapsulate the fact that this real Stanley Cup is here in front of me at a local ice rink in Lake Worth, Florida?
And what camera did you even have on your person at that time?
My BlackBerry phone.
Oh, yeah, get out of here. Good luck. I bet it's like 3 blocks, and you can't even. There's like a silver block and a gray block, and that's it.
Yeah, and you have to pay for that extra pixel as well. So this is really random, but what was your worst injury in hockey that you ever sustained?
Ooh, my worst injury in hockey that I sustained was actually, I almost broke my jaw doing this. I was actually on a breakaway, and I was skating just straight to the net. Since I'm a right-handed shot, I was going to fake short side and shoot far side. This other guy who was playing against me, this is house league hockey, so we all know each other really well. And he's wicked fast, and he was...
That's that Bostonian.
He had quite the temper. He was the kind of guy that would we allowed checking, so technically it's not against the rules to check players, but he would go out of his way and check players that were half his size, that kind of frowned upon type stuff. But great player, really fun to play against. But In his slight moment of rage, he skated around the net on the right side, and as I was shooting it, which I scored by the way, it was nice.
Nice.
Up in the top, roofed it. He came around, and as I was in this motion of putting it up there, like I was in the perfect position where his shoulder would just nailed me right in the side of the jaw.
Oh no.
And I was seeing stars. It was like as close to getting knocked out cold as you could get without actually like losing consciousness or getting knocked out. And I was done for the rest of the game for sure. But
were you scared?
I wasn't scared. I just couldn't feel my jaw, and that's what bothered me the most. The only thing I cared about was like, did it go in? Did it go in? Because I didn't see it go in. And my dad, turning into, doctor mode, was like, oh my God, like, let me try to move your jaw. And I'm like, did I score? And he wouldn't answer me for the longest time, and it frustrated me. But
I bet it must have been really great when he was like, oh yeah, you scored.
Yeah.
But I'm surprised your dad didn't turn into dad mode and like beat the crap out of the other guy.
It's funny you mentioned that. He would never do that. He's a very cool-minded individual, and I admire that about him.
From the few minutes that I actually met him that one time that they all visited you at Nighthon, I got those impressions from your parents.
There's a really famous family story about the only hockey fight I've ever been in where my dad kept his cool and I did not. This was during the era where I was playing with both my parents as a 14, 15-year-old kid in their adult league. I was grandfathered in because I was fast enough to keep up and whatnot, like I mentioned before. There was a guy, he was the same height as my mom. My mom's 5'2", and he was also kind of like 5'2". And there was a play where my mom had the puck, and he was defending her. She deked him, like juked him out, and he fell, and she went back to her right and got a really nice shot on net. I wish she would have scored. It would have been so sweet, but she didn't. And I don't know where this came from, but it just sent rage through the guy. He just couldn't accept that he just got schooled so bad by my mom. But he got up, and he just popped her in the face and started going after her. And me, being 2 feet away, it wasn't even a thought. My mind went blank, and my gloves were gone. Before I knew it, I was on top of him, and my teammates were grabbing me by the shoulders and yanking me off, and there was a whole commotion going on. And my dad, he was on the bench, and he claims he didn't see it. I don't know how he didn't see it, but...
Of course he didn't see it, wink.
Wink, wink. Maybe it was a good thing that the 14-year-old kid saw it, who was a twig, and not the 6'2" dad, who I think would have taken things a little bit differently. But I also don't think my dad would have lost his cool and actually got in a fight with the dude, because being a foot taller than him, I think he may have killed him if he punched hard enough.
Oh, easily. And also, you're 14 at that age.
Oh.
We just want to prove ourselves as men, and so therefore one of those is to get aggressive. And so,
Yeah.
Well, yes, it wasn't exactly the right course of action. You know what? It's okay.
I like to think that. That's what I like to tell myself at night, that I don't fight, but that one was okay.
You were being a good boy and defending your mom.
The funny part about the story is, as the commotion's going on, my mom, of course the refs are getting in because there are other guys on the team that are bigger than my dad, and their bench cleared, our bench cleared, and they're
Nice.
all, and the two refs that are there are like losing their minds, just holding all the big dudes away. And then my mom skates around, like in between everyone, as the guy's like sitting up because I'm finally pulled away from him, and she just like grabs her gloves and then just pops him in the jaw and then just skates away. And at the end of the game, we all know each other really well. You know how it is with hockey in Florida. It's a small community. Everybody kind of gets to know each other really well, really quick. Mm-hmm. So the ref knows our family. They obviously know the dynamic. And the ref came in afterwards, and he's been reffing for like 30 years, talking to me and my dad while we're getting undressed. And he said, I've been reffing for 30 years, but I've never heard anyone say, don't touch my ma, and then just start throwing haymakers at a guy. I've never heard that before. That's the story.
Well, you're a first, so you should definitely take that with a sense of pride.
I'm getting chills just reliving that whole thing, man. Ugh.
And you know what? You're defending your mom, so if anything, you did the right thing. And actually, I one time had an injury that took me out of a practice. I took a slap shot to the nuts from a junior level player.
Oh, my.
It was right after I made a couple laps around the ice, just to get my legs warmed up. Immediately as I stepped in a net, he just put a slap shot, hits me right in the middle of the cup, done.
Dude, even when you have like the best cup that you could buy, it's just still...
It only stops the initial force,
Yeah.
because then once it's the shockwave, that's what hurts you.
Oh my gosh.
I couldn't move. Literally, my dad and another coach had to carry me. I had to be on each one of their shoulders, and they were just dragging me by my goalie pads.
Yeah, I believe that. That's awful. I'm so sorry to hear that.
You know what? It's all right. Thank God I was wearing my cup that day, and then I was thinking, wait, people don't wear their cups?
I don't understand how. If you're a player and you don't wear it, it's still unforgivable. But if you're a goalie and you don't wear it, you're just asking to not have kids.
Right. Just to think, the cup came before the helmet.
Yeah,
so
actually, that's true.
So, if anything, we're of a special breed.
Even for goalies, the cup came before the helmet.
And I believe it was Jerry Cheevers that was actually one of the first goalies to ever put on a mask. I know he had one of the more famous ones because he had all the scars.
Yeah. Being a goalie back in those days, when you're about to take a slap shot full on and you're in your goalie stance and it's just your face out in the open, I don't know how you feel, but like even when I take my helmet off or whatever, like and I'm skating on the ice or when I'm at public skate or whatever, it feels weird because I feel like my head's exposed, my face is exposed.
Right.
And it's scary. So willingly taking those shots at the professional level, the ball's on those guys.
True, but then also they thought cocaine and ketchup was medicine, so it was a much different era, a time where men were men.
Oh my gosh, and cocaine was in Coke.
That's right, which is why they got its name.
Yeah, there it is.
Excellent. I can talk hockey all day, dude.
All day, yeah.
Yeah, but unfortunately, we must stop because we are in my favorite part of any Big DK Energy episode, which is the bonus question round. Yes, these are 10 questions that you do not know about. However, they are all appropriate, and the Navy will still accept you after answering them.
I hope so.
So that being said, are you ready, Mr. Maybury?
I'm ready. Let's hit it.
Perfect. All right. So, question number 1. I asked this for all my hockey fans that come on here. Hockey aliens have invaded Earth, and you are tasked with putting an all-time roster to save the planet. Who is your starting 6?
Oh my gosh.
And you can pull players from any time period, too.
Okay, that's okay. I'm a little biased, but I would put Bergeron at center. I would have Malkin and Ovechkin up there.
Damn, that's a super line for our era.
Yeah. On defense, it would be Bobby Orr on the right, and it would be Victor Hedman on the left. For goalie, I'm going to go with Henrik Lundqvist.
When the Rangers lost to the Kings in that Stanley Cup final, my heart sank. I'm like, Hank deserved one, dude.
Oh, he did. I'm so sorry for a guy like that. He did so much for the game and class act, too, on and off the ice. Yeah.
He was actually one of my favorite goalies to watch as a goalie growing up. Also, really random fact, but Marc-Andre Fleury and I have the same birthday.
Really?
November 28th.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nice.
Oh, and who's the coach?
Brendan Moore. I'd pick him. He's a firecracker. He'll get the team going.
If I'm correct, Rod Brindamore actually captained the team years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Anyway, number 2. If you could live in any sitcom universe, what would it be and what is your role?
Does Scrubs count as a sitcom? Yeah. I would do Scrubs because that show was just so genius and on point. I would be the janitor's assistant. I would help him make the doctor's lives a living hell.
I respect it.
Yeah.
Number 3, what is one specific traveling experience that you want to do in your life?
I'd like to go to Greece and sit near the coastline of the Mediterranean and have a real Greek meal and bask in the beauty of what Greece has to offer.
That sounds really nice right now. I could use a vacation. Number 4, you have saved the life of Lollapalooza's CEO and therefore gives you a concert of 5 of your favorite artists to watch. Who would you watch?
Okay, I would watch Elenium for sure. I'm one of those guys. I'm not shameful for it. I love Ariana Grande. Her music is on point. I would watch Miranda Lambert play.
Okay.
Gotta have some country in there. Fleetwood Mac and Kenny Chesney. I don't think the 5 of them would ever get together in any planet or in any universe.
You know what? The answer you just gave is plenty enough of a universe for which they can all exist.
All right.
Number 5, name a far-fetched goal of your life.
Here's a far-fetched goal of mine. I started writing a book before I went to med school and then abruptly stopped. I'm like 2/3 of the way through it and I keep telling myself, oh yeah, I'll do it. I'll get around to it. And now I'm officially telling myself it's a far-fetched goal because if I keep up at this pace, it will be a far-fetched goal to finish this book. So now I'm challenging myself. That's the far-fetched goal I'd like to accomplish.
Awesome.
Complete.
What's the book about?
It's a murder mystery based in a small town where in the beginning there's a verdict that happens and a young kid goes away for a murder. But you find out later on that the story isn't exactly what everybody believes it is, and there's a lot more to it than just one simple death. And all these 18-year-old high school age kids figure it out together and realize there's a lot more corruption in their small town than they had initially understood or realized. So, yeah, that's the short end of it.
That sounds actually like something I'd like to watch as a movie eventually. So, I don't know. Keep at it. You might have something there.
Yeah.
Number 6, give me 2 truths and a lie.
Okay. I've met Luke Bryan personally and shaken his hand. I have skated on the ice with Le Cavalier, and I have a tattoo on my left thigh.
I'm going to say the tattoo is the lie.
That is the lie. Oh, hold on a second. That was 2 lies and a truth. I apologize.
No, you're good.
Whoops.
You're good, but what was the truth?
Skating on the ice with Le Cavalier.
I was about to say that. I was like, that's probably the one that is going to be the truth. But how did you manage to do that?
It was a freak thing. I wasn't fully dressed. I just got on the ice for a little bit. It was really like my little brother and his goalie that were they were just practicing on the ice. And one sheet over in Tampa, Le Cavalier was just practicing because he was out with an injury, so he wasn't traveling with the team. So he was just sticking around in Tampa, saw my brother's goalie, who was just getting shot on by my brother, and he was like, hey, do you want some shots? And the goalie was like, yeah, sure.
Oh my God.
So since I was there, I'd like to say that I skated with him, but really it was just him shooting at my brother's goalie.
Bro, you were there in the same presence with him. I count it.
Yeah.
That's
cool.
so cool, though.
He was so nice, too. Like, it's amazing how down-to-earth people can be.
Especially hockey players.
Yeah, even though when you're standing next to them, they are massive.
True. It's like hockey players are really bland as like individuals, but you realize that they're very nice people and they're very wholesome.
It's amazing. We're going to have to start describing what our era of hockey was like pretty soon.
Yeah.
So.
I remember when people used to fight. Wait, people used to fight back in hockey?
You actually took gloves off and took helmets off and punched people?
You're that old?
Oh, my gosh.
Shut up, kid. Anyway, so for those of you who don't know, Eddie also here is a great musician. So for number 7, you're in charge of creating a supergroup for music. Assume it's a 5-person band with 2 guitarists, a bassist, drummer, and vocalist. And if you can think of a good keyboardist, I'll allow the extra. Okay. Who do you pick?
For vocalist, I'm going to go with Haley Williams. I think she has a fantastic voice, and it's so unique. There's no mistaking it. She's the lead singer for Paramore.
That's why.
Yeah. For the bass guitarist, I'm going to go with the bass guitarist for Fleetwood Mac. I'm blanking on the name. I apologize out there. But they play mean bass. For guitar, probably Jimi Hendrix.
So that's one of the 2, because you have another one as well.
Ooh, my other guitarist is going to be Eric Church, actually. A little bit out there, but the thing that's amazing about Eric Church is he writes his own stuff, and I think it takes a lot of skill to be a guitarist that does that. A lot of guitarists do that. I'm not saying the other ones don't, but watching his stuff is really, really amazing.
And then the drummer?
For drums, the drummer. Let me do the drummer from AC/DC. That one will probably rock it really well.
I don't know his name either,
I don't know his
but
name.
He's really great as well.
No, yeah. I think that's what I'd go with. Yeah.
That's a good mix of old and new, especially with Jimi Hendrix and like Haley Williams for Paramore.
Yeah. I wonder how that would go. That'd be pretty amazing to see that.
Number 8. What is one hockey game you haven't been to that you want to go to and who are playing?
I have never been to a Bruins Canadiens hockey game, and I would love to go. Obviously, I'd love to go to the one in TD Garden, but even going to a Bruins Habs game in Montreal would be amazing. So
you'd probably have to watch your back though, because they take their hockey really serious up there.
Yeah. I'd be too scared to go to Montreal with just me and one other person. Yeah. So we'll see. Maybe I need to bring like 4 or 5 bodyguards with me.
If you hire me, I also took French for the reason of one day going to Canada. So.
Yeah. You'll cool the waters should things happen.
So allons-y. Number 9. You're at a bar getting drinks with 3 influential figures in your life that are not friends or family. Who are they and what are y'all drinking?
So I'm going to start with a amazing person. She was my director at the summer camp I used to work at. Her name is Mo Eaton. And she taught me really everything that I learned about what it was like being in the realm of like being a leader around kids and being a good role model and what ought to be expected of me from myself and from my superiors when it comes to running a safe, efficient, and fun environment for kids.
Oh, well, so that definitely showed during Nighthon. So what was her name? Mo Eaton?
Mo Eaton is her name. She's based out of Jacksonville. She's a YMCA Florida's First Coast. She's done some amazing things. She has inspired hundreds of more people, not just me. And it's I think a lot of people can attest to her lasting influence.
She sounds awesome, but also Mo Eaton sounds like a really fat rapper.
Oh, yeah. She would like. I think I've witnessed her try to rap at one point during one of the camp activities. So I wonder. I bet she'd like to hear that. Yeah.
Mo Eaton.
Yeah.
Oh. So we have Miss Eaton.
Second would probably. Let me see here. Oh man, this is kind of tough.
That's the thing. My questions are made to make you think.
This is a thinker. Yeah. So my time as a third-year med student I've only been doing it for 6 months so far, and I've met a bunch of brilliant physicians that are just really intelligent. They know their stuff, and they've taken the time to teach me too. One influential physician, her name is Dr. Gaineycall. She works at Avon Health, and during my internal medicine rotation with her, she not only helped teach me how to manage patients and what pace I should be learning, but she also gave me a good exercise and asked me great questions at my level to help me learn at my pace and challenged me like the next day when it came to things that she told me the day before. And I learned a lot of stuff under her, and it was because of how busy she was and how much demand there was for her expertise and her time and her eyes. But she would then turn to me and take the opportunity to help me learn and teach me and challenge me to present patients. She was like, hey, so what's going on with that patient? What do you want to do? why do you want to order that CT scan? Why do you want to get that antibiotic? Like making me really think through why I was suggesting what I was suggesting for these patients, which is what is going to be demanded of me eventually when I'm the one that's running whatever patient case that I'm in front of. And I thought that was such a unique way of instruction, and it really kind of garnered my confidence and made me really want to learn more. So that'll be my number 2 person for sure.
Those are always the best instructors.
Number 3 is going to be a old next door neighbor of mine. His name's Pat Murphy. And he had 3 daughters, and he came over sometimes and he helped me shoot hoops in my front yard because he played ball back in the day and he loved college basketball. And I think like there was a part of him that kind of like, I don't know, maybe he wanted a son, maybe he didn't, I'm not sure. But he and I connected a lot on basketball, like in middle school and stuff. And he would just shoot hoops with me and just like talk to me about stuff. And I'm very lucky. I had a dad growing up that did a great job being a dad and teaching me life lessons and whatnot. But Pat, he was a very kind individual, and he's somebody I keep in touch with every year or so. We talk about March Madness still a lot too.
Nice.
And he is one of the older male figures that I like to emulate myself off of, and I hope I can be half of someday.
Dude, you're obviously having a blast, and I'm so glad you're having a blast, but unfortunately, we're actually at the last question. This is the question that I ask everybody, because the question is the same, but the answers always vary. What is your best, most recent accomplishment?
My best, most recent accomplishment. You know, I know we talked about it a lot, but what I'd like to go with is I'm going to qualify EKM Productions and the videos that I'm making on YouTube as a whole, because in the timeline of my life, it is still relatively recent. It's a hobby of mine that I didn't realize until very recently, and eventually I would love it to grow into something where my friends, their friends are sending me footage of their trips, and I can make it into a highlight for them to remember forever. And I've done that a couple of times so far, and seeing the reaction, like I talked about before, is just so rewarding. And it's also fun because getting into med school is so competitive, and you're taught to just be one thing only. You are a machine. You ought to regurgitate information. You need to get these scores, so high pressure situations. And there's very little time, or there's very little encouragement to follow the things that you're passionate about, follow the things that make you human. And I view this as an accomplishment, not because of like the amount of views or the amount of outreach I'm getting, but because I realize something that's important to me, and I'm choosing to pursue it. I've chosen to make it a valuable thing in my life and follow that, despite what societal norms say about what you ought to be doing. Grind for your job, and you ought to be working for the next day. And in a society where it's almost like frowned upon to take time for yourself in certain situations. So I view it as an accomplishment because it's a way of testing my own balance and keeping myself in check and making sure that I'm taking care of my mental health and staying on point with what's important to me. Because to demand yourself to behave like a machine, to demand yourself to just go, and not acknowledge yourself, ends up in disaster, I feel like, regardless of what industry you're in. I think that applies to a lot of things. That would be what I would qualify because of the meaning behind it, not so much about the outreach it's had thus far.
Yeah. I love that, because when I'm doing with this podcast even, and with my own freelance photography or videography thing, it's kind of exactly what you're saying. We bring some happiness to some people, and we want that to be our major life thing. Whether you picked up a camera just 1 minute or 10 years ago, the fact that you still have that love and you have that little spark that just makes your life more enjoyable. I think that it's great that you found this, and I really hope that you continue with it. And with that being said, we are actually at the end of the episode, so we're just going to wrap some things up here. So first of all, I just want to say, Eddie, thank you so much for joining the show today and being the first recording of 2022, even though this is going to be viewed later in the year.
Thanks for having me. This was such a joy. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. I'm honored.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad you're honored because, Eddie, you're such a stand-up guy, and hearing your motivation, the fact that you're building up a skill and are allowing yourself to enjoy the skills that you've garnered and to help build memories, which is one of the very few things that humans can do in order to preserve their legacy on this planet. And the fact that you truly, genuinely enjoy doing it so that others can feel that exact same feeling, it's very generous of you. And those are the reasons why I think you, Edward or Eddie Maybury, have big DK energy.
Yeah. All right. I love that. I didn't expect that. That's cool.
Of course, that's always how I wrap up my shows.
Nice.
That's why the show is called Big DK Energy.
Well, I'm honored to be considered and part of the fold of the Big DK Energy family.
You want to be on here if I didn't think so?
Yeah. Great.
So, with that all being said, we're going to put his personal and EKM Productions social media links in the description below. Hit that like button, that subscribe button as well, and the bell notification so that every week you won't miss an episode. And before we head off, is there anything else you'd like to promote or say, Eddie?
I think you've nailed it, actually. Yeah, YouTube channel that I put my big videos up is just my personal name, Edward Maybury. But yeah, most of the stuff that you listed is great.
All right, perfect. Well, with that all being said and done, I'm Danny K, or the DK and the Big DK Energy, and we are signing off.